On this episode of Classic Cinema Corner, I will be taking a look at Hideo Nakata's Ringu, a rare film that gains more relevance with time. Though VHS tapes might be long forgotten, Ringu has a spot-on take on how media can be weaponized, specifically by presenting propaganda as a news item. Underneath its surface horror, this is the story of what is essentially a terrorist manipulating a reporter into spreading her work. The film starts with a close-up of a television set before pulling back to two teenage girls. Notice how the television is framed between the two. Though the two girls are not paying attention to what's on the screen, the television takes center stage. Even when we look away, the power media has over our lives is inescapable. One of the girls, Tomoko, claims to have watched a cursed videotape, but she also claims to not remember the contents. Ultimately, the content is meaningless. It has had its psychological effect, and it will serve its final purpose of either spreading to more people or killing. Soon after, Tomoko claims to be joking. Whatever happened is too horrible to share. This sets up a central theme of the story. Some stories are so horrible that the only effect of sharing is to cause more harm. Images presented in certain ways can be scarring. As the girls go downstairs, Tomoko looks in the fridge as the television kicks on with the sound of the baseball game. Where it was earlier muted, the game now dominates all sound. Even when she turns it off, it turns right back on. Even if we try to look away, media has too much power. Instead of showing Tomoko's death, Ringu stops on a freeze frame of her looking back in horror. Initially, the film plays to its central premise. To spread images of violence can be damaging. It limits us to the story. It is important to know what happens to Tomoko, but any grisly results are excessive. The film now focuses on Reiko, a reporter who is investigating the tape as the next big news story. Reiko pushes hard for the story, looking for any minute detail. If the film itself wants to avoid violence, its hand is forced by a protagonist who is guided by a search for the juiciest information. Reiko consistently shows more concern for finding the next big story than the victims. She discusses similar rumors popping up after violent incidents. For her, the circumstances of the incidents don't matter. Rumors leave people intrigued, and an interested viewer is the most valuable resource for the media. As Reiko returns home, we first see her son Yoichi sitting in a chair, only the back of his head visible. But looking closely, you'll see his image reflected in the television set. He is small and almost invisible within the reflection. Media has the power to consume him. Reiko soon learns the earlier victim was her niece. While attending the funeral, Yoichi follows what must be a spirit upstairs. In the context of the theme, children are simply more susceptible to the media's effects. Predictably enough, as he looks through Tomoko's room, the panning shot stops on the television. Instead of grieving her niece, Reiko immediately goes into investigative mode. She finds a group of grieving schoolgirls and questions them. If the tape is a psychological weapon, Reiko is the force that enables it. She doesn't care whether the story has any value. She simply knows mysterious deaths are a sellable premise. Reiko goes to great lengths to expose herself and the audience to the grisly details. She watches a tape of two victims' bodies being found, and even has the video paused to look at the victim's terrified face. Her coworker comments on the horror, but Reiko is so desensitized that she simply continues asking questions. Reiko returns to investigate Tomoko's room. Tomoko's mother recalls finding the body, and we are given a flashback to the discovery before she collapses on the floor. Reiko directly opens up these traumatic wounds in the search for her story, and as the mother cries, Reiko does nothing to comfort her. Moments like this are simply collateral for the story she desires to tell. It is when Yoichi mentions the tape that Reiko finally reacts in fear. Reiko is fine with anyone else being harmed by her story, but her own child is off limits. She doesn't understand that something that affects society will likely impact her son as well. Despite increasing evidence that the rumors may actually be true, Reiko takes it upon herself to find and watch the tape herself. Journalistic senses outweigh even her self-preservation. Nothing is more important than solving the mystery. Reiko's discovery of the tape is presented as if through a static-heavy television station. At this point, she is no longer just an investigator, but a tool for Sadako. The tape itself is calling to her. The evil within this film recognizes Reiko's ability to enact the tape's true purpose. Perhaps her niece being one of the first victims was simply a ploy to bring Reiko here. This brings us to the tape itself. Disparate images are rapidly edited together, though it's clear something sinister is being implied. Though we later learn the meaning of almost every image, we first get nothing but a raw emotional experience. Like the worst clickbait, the tape is aware of the power of a decontextualized image. It entices us to learn more, even against our better judgment. After the tape finishes, Reiko is finally shown in a state of fear for herself. For this brief moment, we see her as an individual person and not merely a gear in the media machine. In the reflection of the television set, Reiko catches a girl standing in the room. Naturally, she isn't actually there. Sadako, as she is now, only exists within media. As she picks up the fatal phone call, the film chooses not to let us hear the warning. This moment of terror is reserved for Reiko herself. Though she's been sitting on the edge as an intrigued bystander, engaging directly with the source has made her part of her own story. The next day begins with rain, but it's striking how similar it sounds to television static. Like Sadako's reflection, media slowly begins creeping into the physical world. Reiko calls up her ex to help investigate. Before she can begin, Ryuji himself puts in the tape. Though aware of its danger, she simply steps outside and lets him watch. In the end, the tape knew she would share. Later, Ryuji sits on a bench and has a vision. We get a rare moment of voiceover in the film. It is as if Ryuji is more aware and better able to cope with the impact of media. But as we will eventually learn, even having an awareness doesn't necessarily stop its effects from having an impact. Reiko and Ryuji comb through the video for clues, and Ryuji directly states the creator wants to be discovered. They come so close to realizing the purpose of the tape. It's not to present a story, but simply to leave an impact and make people aware of Sadako's existence. However, they instead look too deeply into the specific images. Much of the rest of the film finds them following these threads, but these images are simply part of the video's weaponized design. Whatever other meaning they have is worthless in this context. Soon, Yoichi comes across the tape. Now that it's begun to spread, Reiko is no longer in control. Her only purpose is to help the tape reach a larger audience. Throughout the film, images from the video will pop on screen. Again and again, the film reinforces the negative impact of exposing oneself to disturbing images. They have been etched into her mind, acting like PTSD. When they finally come across Sadako, it's not through investigation, but rather Reiko being forced into a flashback with her. Sadako creates a direct connection. The story and the reporter who tells it have become intertwined. Reiko strives to shape Sadako into a sympathetic figure. Because she views the world as stories, she sees Sadako's tortured past and assumes something can be done to fix it. It doesn't cross her mind that Sadako is too far gone, that her only goal now is to cause harm. The two go so far as to find Sadako's body in the well she was buried in. But again, Sadako doesn't want to be rescued. It's a futile, painful exercise to correct a story no one was asking to be solved. However, within the first viewing, it offers a false hope. This is the tidy ending a reporter would want to close on, especially with her own life involved. The false ending is popular in horror, but it really fits the theme here. Reporters want to shape a story into being presentable, but some stories simply are not. First we get the story Reiko wants. Now we get Sadako's take. Sadako appears in Ryuji's apartment. The curse has not been lifted. At this point we finally see media physically manifest as Sadako climbs out of the television set. Reiko continues to investigate, searching for what she did differently. As before, the images from the tape linger in her mind. Even if she survived her week, Sadako will continue to hang over her. The tape's negative effects include more than just death. Reiko finds the original copy, but a man from the tape appears in a reflection to guide her to the copy she made. It is finally made clear. Sadako's sole intent for the video is to be spread. The film's ending is simply stunning. Reiko calls up her father with the intent of showing him a copy to save her son. A bit of external gossip implies it spreads far beyond this point. Reiko has concluded that the best option is to tell people to keep spreading the tape. But, even if it saves each viewer's life, it's now been made clear more effects linger. With Reiko's assistance, Sadako's sinister message, whatever it truly is, will infect the world at large. Ringu feels particularly predictive of internet trends, a commentary on viral sensations way before that era. It seems to warn of the ways terrorist organizations would use websites like YouTube and manipulate journalists into sharing gruesome videos. In the end, if the point of terrorism is to cause terror, it only works when people are made aware of that terror. As such, media and terrorism are intrinsically linked. Unfortunately, like Reiko, the promise of something horrifying gives many of us an itch to find out more. Even if a news report only mentions something gruesome, some of us will search it out, even if we know it will leave a scar. There's a certain instinct to engage with real violence behind a screen. We recognize our need for physical safety, but not the potential for emotional harm. So, while a report on the latest beheading is certainly newsworthy, sharing the footage benefits no one but the creators.